Salutations everyone, this is Razor with my quest for a main episode 5, Lucina. Now Lucina was the 5th character that I felt some sort of possibility that this might be a character that I would main. My main in Melee, if I could say that I have one, for the majority of the time would have been Roy. And obviously Marth is, was better than Roy then, and he was, pretty darn good in Brawl, and he's been getting a lot of attention in Smash 4. When the game first came out, because he wasn't amazing, when he was, top tier in both Melee and Brawl. So the fact that, oh my gosh, that forward smash though. The fact that he wasn't, really great got a lot of attention, but he was never a terrible character, and I don't think anybody really thought that. But he didn't didn't have very much representation in competitive play, and then you see Mr. E and Pug West, and they start to do some things, but not a ton of top 8 placements. And then you have Leo, who brings Marth to Super Majors and goes to Grand Finals. People are like, whoa, what's up with this Marth guy? I mean, he got, he got some nerfs, and he got a couple of small buffs, but didn't really have any big changes to the character. So, what changed? How come all of a sudden this character, and we've seen Nairo with his Lucina take out Zero, and some other people, as a counter pick, as a little mix up every now and again, and as the Marth cannot make it back to the stage, and we go up against the Mewtwo. Lucina, we all know about the differences between Marth and Lucina. There's very few. I made a video about it, and it all still holds quite true. Now, where a lot of people, there's some weird things that people seem to think between Marth and Lucina when you compare the two. Lucina gets a lot of flack because she's quote-unquote easier to play than Marth, but I don't think anybody is arguing that Lucina's better than Marth. You'd be really weird if you thought or said that or believed other people that would say that, just because she has less range, she doesn't have the tipper mechanic, and I mean, that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's also some small things, with shield, but the way that the tip and non-tipped works with how Marth's able to do a lot more combos. You can get that tipper dancing blade. You can do jab into a forward smash that can kill earlier than Lucina can, even though because of Lucina's mechanics she can do it more consistently. People just shit on Lucina because she's easy Marth. It's like, well, shouldn't you give more, I don't know why people hating on a character because she's worse. It's really weird. Shouldn't it be more impressive if you're a Lucina at a top level as opposed to a Marth? Because people always say, hitting tippers are so easy and all this stuff, but people shit on Lucina because she's a clone. People say, it's a waste of a slot, even though that's not a thing. Those aren't words that work. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. This is not the freaking GameCube. We are not limited by space. And I'm just gonna do a quick little 0 to death on this Pikachu right here because I was feeling the groove. This is actually a pretty good Pikachu too. I know it might not seem like this based off of this quick little 0 to death and the 2 stock that will come straight after, but we're going to just cover all the options, and that's what both Marth and Lucina are really good with. Obviously, they don't have much in the way of combos. They don't get much in the way of throws. Yes, up throw does eventually start killing, with rage, around 150, to 180 is, the latest it'll start killing. Depending on, the height of the ceiling and the range that you do have. So it's not a great kill throw, but at least it's a throw that can eventually kill, and that you don't really see that come into play unless you're, those super duper high percentages, which you even only rarely see in competitive, but it is still an available option. Down throw is really the only throw that you ever want to use with either of these characters at low percents. You could go for the down throw, up air, almost everyone will spot dodge, and you can punish their landing with a forward smash or a dancing blade or a fair. So there's just a lot of options out, and if they DI away, it's an easy back air, but it's still not great for comboing. You don't have guarantees out of it. It's just a lot of mix-ups and 50-50s and coverage options with both Marth and Lucina. They play the same way, and I understand you would think because of the way that their swords are different, in how the damage is distributed, as well as, you know, the range. I don't understand why Lucina doesn't have the same size sword as Marth, but, you know, just doesn't have the tipper mechanic. I think that would just be better. That'd be fairer. It's also kind of weird that Lucina, out of all the Fire Emblem characters, has the longest sword. That's kind of funny. Anyway, but she has the shortest sword, you know, in the actual game. So I don't understand why they had to give her a shorter sword, but, you know, it's whatever. Marth's got the tipper mechanic. That's all well and good. That's what we expect. That's what we want. So you would think because of that, Lucina would do better in some matchups than Marth. And I want to believe that. I really do. And there are even some people at high level of play who say that Lucina would be better for certain matchups. And you can definitely see why in the way certain characters might recover, or the fall speeds, you know, maybe make things a little bit easier for you. But Marth, with the better range and the tipper, I think is just better in every single matchup. I really do. I mean, when it comes to maximizing potential, Marth is the superior character, no question. Now, I did try a lot of Marth in conjunction with Lucina, because I wasn't sure if this was going to be a Marth-Cina vid, because I knew I liked Lucina because she's waifu as fuck and I love her and I'm decent with her compared to how terrible I am with most other characters, which is all of them. So I thought, you know, I would give Marth the same try and really figure out, am I actually better with Lucina, or am I better with Marth, who's obviously the better character? And it turns out, nope, I am absolutely worse with Marth. It doesn't feel that way when I play the game, but when I look at my win-loss and, you know, my damage given and damage taken, I am better with Lucina by a, you know, this isn't by a small margin either, as we break the shield and send this Corrin to where he belongs, to the death, because he picked the wrong Corrin. He's supposed to pick girl Corrin. That's the one true Corrin. I don't know what he's doing. So yeah, I am just better with Lucina. Maybe obviously some people are better with Lucina than they are with Marth. Some people are better with Marth than they are with Lucina, and they are definitely interchangeable. The only difference is how, based off of the tipper non-tipper mechanic, how some combos can work, and obviously the range of Marth's sword makes a big difference. It's especially obvious in his jab, you know, the frame 5 jab, which is one of his best moves, as well as Lucina's, because you can combo that into forward tilt, you can combo that into up air at certain percentages, you can combo into forward smash at certain percentages with all the characters. Obviously Marth, with the better range and with the tipper mechanic, can get more out of it. So the difference in the range is very obvious with the jab, with the forward tilt, and with the up air, and especially I feel with the up tilt, where it's just such a good out of shield option and anti-air with Marth. But with Lucina, because of its shorter range, you have to be much more specific with the timing, and you aren't going to get as big of a reward out of it. Sure, you can start killing, you know, with rage, with up airs at, you know, a single, you know, a full hop, starting at like 130-ish, but, you know, with Marth, with the tipper up air, that's just, you're going to start killing so much sooner, and obviously with the fair off-stage opponents, which, because of the way Lucina has less knockback, she might be able to chain more forward airs, but that's not going to work on a ton of characters. It's only going to work on a few, such as Ganondorf, which is terrible at recovery, and with the shield break, we're able to get a kill at a 55% without any rage, helping us there as we go into the Lucy Ditto. So I'm better with Lucina. That's something that I suspected, and I just really need to figure out. As comes to normalcy, whenever I've done any of these Quest for a Main guides, if you count Marth and Lucina as the same character, they are my most used character. And obviously I'm not going to be able to keep that up. I started with Kirby, he became my most used, and, you know, Captain Falcon, he became my most used, Jigglypuff was my most used, and I continually do that, but the time is eventually going to add up. So as far as if I'm going to main Lucina or not, obviously the lack of combos definitely hurts, but we know what Marth and Lucina are capable of, but it's just about making the right reads, having good fundamentals, and looking for the right option to cover. It's not like somebody with a ton of projectiles, or, you know, somebody who's really great at zoning, which you could say Marth does with his tipper, and that's a fair argument to make. It's just characters that have, you know, more range in their zoning capabilities. Their purpose is to cover a ton of options to where your opponent eventually misses an option, or in avoiding one, they put themselves in an even worse situation for another option, like a forward smash. And we get the untechable there at 22% on the edge guard and the Lucy Ditto as we hook up against all the amazing Ganondorfs on For Glory. I feel like Ganondorf has taken Little Mac's role, and everybody at least secondaries a Ganondorf on For Glory because they'll lose with the character that they want to use, and instead of going to Little Mac and just super armoring everything, they're going to Ganondorf and just side B'ing all the things, and it's so obvious and it doesn't work. But back to what I was saying, so I feel like I definitely do better with Lucina, and while you can't zone as much as other characters like Link or Samus or Duck Hunt when it comes to, you know, the projectiles and range that they offer, it's with Marth and Lucina, it's not about covering a ton of options and then finding something to exploit. It's much more based off of reads and frame trapping with your aerials and how you decide to go about combos. Reading your opponent, obviously you're the best Marths out there, being Leo and Pugwest and Mr. E. You see the way that they cover their enemies' options really dictates how well they can do. Obviously, Marth and Lucina don't do well in a lot of matchups where they can get zoned out, or, you know, against Cloud where he just has a disjoint that's just bigger and more powerful in every single situation. They don't have a ton of amazing matchups when it comes to a lot of the top tiers, but we know that because they have that range, they have that disjoint, which most of your sword characters aren't great, so most of your top tiers aren't going to have a disjoint to help them, and that definitely puts Marth and Lucina in a special place. Whether you consider them to be, you know, high tier or mid tier, I would not say, even though we've seen what Leo's been able to do with Marth, I would not call Marth a top tier character. He's just, the character just doesn't, you know, he doesn't have the combo ability, he doesn't have the edge guarding ability. He has a lot of good tools and options, but they don't cover as many things. They're not safe enough, and they don't do enough damage. But with the tipper, you know, mechanic, you have the ability to stage huge comebacks. You can break shields and get super early kills. You can get those tipper up airs or back airs, or, you know, even the down air spike, which obviously is not a good move, and I wish they would change because it's only a spike on one frame and it's the third frame and it's a tipper. Even with Lucina, you have to get the tipper in order for it to spike. It's like, I wish they would change anything about that move to make it more useful. But just because of the tipper that Marth has, he is obviously has a lot. He's usually going to have one option that's the right option. It's all about your option select of that, and getting out of combos with Dolphin Slash is always super duper fun. And Dancing Blade, I still feel, is a super underappreciated move. It's fantastic at catching landings. It's really good at mixing up your opponent for, you know, finishing or not finishing your Dancing Blade, mixing up the variations of them. We get the up tilt right there. Obviously, Marth has the ability to tipper if you use the third downward hit. Then the final hit will tipper a lot of the time. Lucina will do more consistent damage with her Dancing Blade because with Marth, you know, in order to get max damage, you're going to have to tip all the things, but you're most likely going to get one tip, if that, on your variation of your Dancing Blade. So Lucina will do more consistent damage with Dancing Blade than Marth. Her up smash is better because that's not something you're going to tip very often. And Shield Breaker, I feel like, is better because you're just going to be better at breaking shields. Because unless you're tipping with Marth, you're not going to be breaking shields nearly as often as with Lucina. And as you can see, maybe that breaks with Marth, you know, because his shield was so small, but push him over the ledge to get the kill with the 43%. So Lucina and Marth have their potential. They have a lot of good options out there, but I would definitely have to work a lot more on my mechanics and reading opponents to maximize the character, because she's not super flashy, she doesn't have a ton of tools, and she doesn't have the tipper to boot, but still a solid character, a character that I like, and one that I do want to explore more of, but I don't know if I'm going to main her. We'll see. The quest continues.